well go live. I think I have. I don't know. Maybe. maybe not. Maybe that not. Hello, and for Cliff. Guess what? The power should be arriving soon, and I can't comment when I'm on my phone. But I'll go. I'll go on. It should go on at 11, and I'll put the PC on, and then we should be okay. We were just talking about, and I think Bruce says, I got nothing at the stage. There he is. He's got nothing. He's
Got
got
nothing.
absolute nothing.
Because
nothing.
I got my penicillin and it's all been cured.
Oh, well done.
You did you have an occurrence which I didn't?
No.
Okay,
if you watch my video, you'll have seen.
Which
check.
your last flying one?
Oh, hang on, just got to change microphones.
Oh, okay.
Is that better?
Yes.
Oh, it is. Oh, yeah, it's dramatically better.
Good. That's what I like.
Very good. Very good. We were just talking about the DroneX show in London, at which Philip Rouse and 3DXR are there with a stand. And I said to Mark, well, I reckon, hello there, Mick, driving to work. That would probably been one of the only ones I would wanted to go to. It looks like they had a good stand there. Second day tomorrow. And Mark was just about to tell me hello there, Mac, why he would go, and hello, Barton, why he would go there.
Yeah, so the DroneX thing, I mean, let's face it, let's be kind of honest. There's not going to be anything breakthrough new technology-wise for drones now. It's kind of all it's a VTOL or it's a heavy lift. So I'm sure there'll be lots of nice aircraft looking there, which normal users like me won't touch anyway. You're not going to touch a big heavy lift. I believe there was agricultural spraying as well.
Don't you think the next big thing will be built-in grenade holders for the military market? I'm thinking this is going to be a big thing. I mean, I'm looking. That's the primary use of drones. Drone delivery of ordnance has become the biggest use case for drones, the most successful use case for drones, and also the biggest turnover for the manufacturers.
Which manufacturers?
You've got to remember, this is a commercial show, Bruce, not a
commercial
show. So, yeah, I mean, for commercial operators, I think it will be interesting because what's kind of nice about things like DroneX, and I've gone to the drone shows before in London, what is kind of nice is for a lot of the time, you only see people's names on Facebook. You don't really see their faces. You don't get to interact with them very well, just typing. But you can actually go, and it is nice because you can kind of get together. It's a nice little meeting place, but for me, I just can't get there this year. It's impossible. My schedule's just too hellish for the next 2 weeks, and I just couldn't escape no matter what I wanted. It's just one of those things, It's perfect outside. Part of me says I should have been flying tonight. I went out about half an hour ago, and I should have been outside flying. It's so still out there; it would have been perfect.
Is it still lovely weather over there?
No, we're about to get smashed tomorrow midday-ish, unless it arrives slightly early or later, of course, who knows. We've got Storm Agnes, and it's like risk to life. Most of the UK is 40-mile-an-hour winds and higher. So we're going to get battered tomorrow for about 12 hours, I think it is.
Battered like a Mars bar and a Scottish takeaway.
Yeah. Which is... Here I go. Pull up a sandbag. When I arrived at my first post in Scotland, I thought I'll go downtown and get myself something to eat. I'll go and get and I went into Chip Shop and they had pizza on the menu. And 19-year-old me was bemused when the bloke took the pizza out of the freezer and dropped it in the deep fat fryer. Where have I come to? What land have I travelled? I've not even got on a plane or a boat and gone far away, but I seem to be in a strange and different land. It was quite a thing. We've just had a weather event in the Cape that our weather warnings go up to stage 6, and for the first time in the country's history, we had a stage 9 weather warning, and that it's I think about 14 people very sadly have lost their lives, cars washed away, 100 mil of rain in 2 hours. So it was Yeah. So yeah, deep fried pizza, Johnny D. Deep fried pizza. Just dropped into the vat, and as Bruce was alluding to, they take a candy bar, a Mars bar, they put batter on it, and they drop that in the fryer as well. It's a very healthy country, very, very healthy country.
Scotland, they will deep fry anything for you. You could, if they haven't got it, you could probably walk into a chippy, go, could you deep fry this for me? They will probably cover it in batter and drop it in for you just to see what happens.
And for vegans, deep fried broccoli.
Yeah. They would do that. With pleasure.
Yes, as I launch the PC, I'm sure we'll find that. Let's actually go back to that drone thing. It's a bit dull, isn't it? But let's take ourselves back because what Bruce was saying about the grenade delivery, and I've started writing a thing for Faceless News about what the primes are doing at DSEI. The bloke from Kinetics stood up and he sort of said, well, it's all very well, but they're not really up for much, these here Chinese drones or commercial off-the-shelf things. Not really. I mean, we can do better. It's like, mate, you just don't know.
Here's the problem, and same with DroneX. If anyone's doing a drone delivery aircraft, right, and they're bragging and they're going this, that, and the other, all you've got to do is go, right, is it cheaper than DJI's new one? Can it lift 30 kilos? Can it match the DJI one? Because if it can't, and it's twice as much money, you've already lost. You're already pointless, in my opinion. You kind of already. You're just losing that battle. That DJI one for 15 grand, 30 kilos, that's what you've got to beat. And if you can't touch that kind of price bracket, that kind of weight lifting, and let's face it, that reliability, because DJI.
Oh no, he's fallen off the table.
Oh, that hurt. I tell you, that hurt.
No lack of excitement here today.
Oh
look, he vanished. Look, he come back. You can see up his nose now. This is really good.
Let's go like this. This is the bit where Barton, I'll try and this is the bit where I oh, I was
it's in glorious stereo with a bit of a reverb. That's fantastic.
Right, this stream's either going to end now or it'll be okay.
There's two of you guys.
It's great. Doppelganger Gary. Oh, he's still here.
I've proved.
But he got echo now.
Echo?
I'm just going to switch my phone off.
Oh.
Yeah, I see.
Ah.
Yeah, it's very clever, isn't it? Technology. I see DJI have actually started a company has started some drone delivery services in China with the DJI drone. I saw a press release today.
I would like to see that.
If you go onto Google News and search for drone today, you'll probably find it.
Oh, we all now hit Google quickly, everyone.
That happened, didn't it? I should just be one microphone now, so I shouldn't be echoing. How's that?
Yep. No, you're fantastic.
Deep fried Mars bars with sea salt, a creme omelette. Nice one, cool cat. Very nice.
Isn't lava bread Welsh?
Lava bread is Welsh, yes, absolutely.
Yes. But it's much slower now. It can only do 20 miles an hour, that lava bread.
That lava bread, absolutely. So you've seen that a company has stood up a delivery service in China with it. That's pretty interesting. I will definitely go out and look at that afterwards because, it had to happen, didn't it? It'll be very interesting to see how that scales and goes. Right. So what was it we were talking about before? I can actually search for it now. I can't remember what it was. There was
I don't think anyone knows or anyone cares, actually.
No, that's true. Fair enough. And what do we think to that new little DJI thing, which we all knew all the specs
the Mini 4?
It was, it's
like the iPhone 15, something nobody really needs, but everyone will buy.
It's again another thing I've started writing. I realised the other day I got a bit of aluminium pole out of the garden, and it was a bit of aluminium pole that I used to put them all together and make a bigger pole, and put a camera on top of it and take pictures like
Stick
aerial
cam.
photos. Yeah, stick cam, exactly. And I was putting on a TV antenna, a terrestrial TV antenna on it. And as I was doing it, I realized that my 8-year-old, and come to that, my 6-year-old, neither of them have ever seen terrestrial television. They actually asked me what was this thing that I was doing, and because it was to try and watch the rugby, South Africa versus another team that apparently won last week, because they're showing it on terrestrial TV and you can't get it on digital. So I thought I'd have a bit of fun. I'll see if I could see that, but I couldn't even remember which way. It's been switched off on the local TV transmitter. But anyway, the point of this long rant is, so I went from the pole for taking pseudo aerial photos or higher elevation images, a posh business-like sounding way of saying that does exist somewhere. There's that, and the terrestrial TV. The changes in technology in 8 years is quite remarkable. And if we were to look at what everyone would have been flying 8 or 10 years ago, quad-wise, compared to the Mini 4 Pro, it's just no comparison. And you wonder what the next 10 years will actually bring. So whilst we might either that, oh, it's only been incremental changes, there's only little changes, oh, that isn't much different, is it? It's actually, oh my word, it's actually, they're pretty cool now.
So you'll just be waiting for the wax cylinder to arrive in the mail so you can listen to that game on your new record player or your cylinder player.
Exactly, that's right. Because the LP wax player.
Before the summer gets there and it all just melts.
Yes, quite so, quite so. But no, things change quick.
Funny you should say that though, Gary, because I've always wanted a network VNA, a VNA, a vector network analyzer for doing antenna stuff and that. And traditionally they have cost 20, 30 grand from people like Keysight or HP or whatever, Agilent, whatever they call themselves today. So you have to have a pretty good use case for it, because to recover that cost in terms of earnings requires you using it pretty much all day, every day. And a few years ago, things changed, and now I bought this from AliExpress for $200, and it does all that, $20,000-$30,000 worth of stuff. It's not a professional level piece of gear, but it enables me to do the stuff I want to do for 1/100th of the price. And that's just the way technology's gone. And it's something you can put in your pocket rather than having to allocate a large amount of disk space to it. We're just moving in that direction. Ever smaller, ever faster, ever cheaper.
So it's pretty amazing. And I can't think there'll be, we're certainly going to hit the point where you'll get most of the work done that you want to get done with something like a Mini 4. And that ain't no bad thing. It really is not a bad thing. You get your roof inspections done, you get the odd images done. Been at school this week, got a project to rehabilitate a stream. I mean, just taking a few images with the thing sat in the bag back there. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. And 15, maybe 20 years ago, there I was using a pole and kites before things were really, all that available. But I did enjoy I must admit, I did actually like kite aerial photography cap. I think I might have to get back into that again. So that's the one drone this week. We've spoken about DroneX and quite what it is. I think that definitely the time has come, because one problem I have with lots of drone stuff, especially stuff in England, is you have to go into London. It's like straight away. It's I don't want to go into London. Marcus.
I did say to a few people a few years ago when we're talking some interesting people. I did say to people that it's a shame that no drone show has rented out a showground. So, like in the UK, we have showgrounds. Get a showground, hold a 2-day, 3-day event, and have drones flying around. Do live mapping. You want to see a wing truth fly? You will see it fly. If you've got these aircraft that are at the DroneX show, you've got a heavy lift, right? Can you demonstrate it flying? And if not, why not? And there should be that kind of story why the regulations can actually, we can build it, we can design it. Can we show it to you flying?
That's funny. Funny you should say that, because that's exactly where I was going to go with this. I think it's time for like a prove it show. It's just and more about more about for people that fly and build, rather than people that are going to sell you training or insurance or UTMs or all the fiddly bits, which to a certain extent are really kind of the easy bits, because they don't have to prove anything, and they don't have to put their wallets down and crash stuff or whatever. You know, design and flying folk. I mean, it could be fantastic to have it in New Zealand at Tokoroa, wouldn't it, or something like that? A little airfield
We could do
somewhere
that.
in the world. Yeah, it'd be great.
And all the counter UAS people can be demonstrating their products while the vendors are flying their products.
Yeah, but not only that, you know.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. I'm just agreeing. Yeah, we have all right. Bring your products, prove it works, and if anyone gets past you, then you better come up with a prize for them.
Yeah, I mean, I would. You can actually run that because showgrounds are big enough. You can have stuff going on all over. You know, your eVTOLs, come and see them. You know, demonstrate them. They all tell Dragonfish or whatever. You've got your, you know, anything under 3 meter Mugens probably can fly all right. You want to show your aircraft doing stuff. You want to show a UTM working. You could have Richard there with his Skyway system set up, going, look, this is how we will get across this, because you've got drones flying and he wouldn't have a clue what's going on there, but Altitude Angel would be there and they'll be able to show you what's going on in the sky, you know, with their system. Would it work? Could they get a drone from A to B across the site with everything else going on that they're not told on pre-planning, for example? It would, you know, and you could have the indoor space, because you would have your insurers, you could have your training companies there. Training companies could actually go out and give people hands-on training with certain aircraft. You want to, you know, you want to sell an M300. Someone's, you know, bring it, show it off. EBs, for example, EBX, get that out, fly in, stuff like that, because it's all right showing it on a stand, but actual practical use. I would take a swarm with me. I would actually go, if that was going on, I'd be like, right, I need to book a slot, because even though it's in daytime, I think people would be interested in just how to go out.
It could be at night time, because you definitely, and I think we've struck a chord. Let me just put through. So Andrew saying there are Lake. Oh, did you come to Lake Victoria, Andrew? I don't know if you were there. And then Mick saying, like a good old field day for farmers, and John saying, like the Outback Challenge. I think we may have hit a chord there. It's just someone else is gonna come up with this as a brilliant idea now, aren't they? But it's but you're right. But your light show, well, why, you know, to have an event on a beach or something with a chip shop and a pub nearby, and then come the evening, there goes the light shows. Bring them on. But certainly, and a lot of the chats, I just don't bother. That one that people were talking about, that the kinetic guy did at DSEI, I would have just walked out of it. That's what and unfortunately, that's what I find myself doing. And he's like, "You're talking tosh, I'm off." You know, it's not.
What's really interesting as well, you have these speakers, and they do talk a lot. Part of me would go, right, you're here with your team, get your drones out, show me. You know, actually do it, because you could even do like live inspections, how different companies, how your software processes are building, because on a showground, you're going to have all the buildings there. Right, do it. Show us, you know, show
corner of Flight Fest, or a corner of Tokoroa, the opposite corner from the go-karts. Yeah, it's be very doable. MTV mentioning the Skydio, the X10. Sharp intake of breath. It's not going to save the world, is it? Look, it's a nice piece of kit. Should be. It's brand new, but it's not really all that grand. Oh, we could look up. Oh, you mean like the Falcon 8 could 15 years ago, etc., etc. It's like,
did I read a story today with a news story where they were saying that they can use that to follow perps instead of follow me, it's follow him, so that the police force will be able to have automated following of potential suspects and things, and the privacy implications and all the usual crap. So people are noticing that it's there, but will they actually buy it?
Well, so to a certain extent in America, they might have to.
But did you see there was one police force somewhere went out and bought a whole lot of DJI drones, despite the federal dictates? They've gone and invested in DJI because it's the best tool for the job, they reckon.
Yeah. Andrew's saying you tested. There was Goodwood drone that won the fly-off. Yes, there's Goodwood. And Mick, how much what the UAV challenge was? Well, yeah, no, I never organised it, but I can imagine it was. But it was probably the single event that brought forward the industry faster than anything else. It was an absolutely magnificent event, and it's such a pity that it's no longer happening. I used to even go to the point of trying to get some VB beer in and watch the live streams in the very early hours of the morning when a couple of years they did do them. But yeah, that was a fantastic event, and if you could organize something with 1/10 of the chutzpah of that, then you'd be doing X10. What happened to the 9 previous versions? Good one, John. Yeah, it's expecting a lot, but also they've got that very insidious, pernicious, I'm not sure what the word is, pricing policy where you pay a little bit more to get this add-on, a little bit more to get that, and a little bit another subscription to get this bit working. A bit like a modern car, I understand, in the real world, where if you want the radio to keep working, you subscribe. If you want the heated seats to keep working, you subscribe. So I think that might be the downfall of them. It's all the bolt-on little extra bits. And I saw somebody nicely describe the Skydio things as great if you want to make a model of a thing, not so great if you want to map a large area, which I think that about sums them up really. But I don't know, MTV, maybe you've got an opinion about it. Over to you. type fast. Do you guys have any more thoughts on the X10 before I move on to something that I have no idea what we're going to talk about?
A drone's a drone now. It takes a photo, right? It takes video, right? It avoids stuff. All drones now have got to the stage where they're not bringing a lot new to the party, are they? Okay, so some have slightly better weather protection. Some have slightly better wind can handle the wind better. Some can take slightly better photos or video. Take your pick what you want, kind of thing now. It's like the anti-collision. They can all do it to a degree or not. Depends upon if you're a bad flyer or a good flyer. Do you rely on that or not, day in, day out? It's all about it's the sensors. What you get from the drone is the drone you're flying. Most of us fly camera drones. There's some that are going to be LiDAR. So if it's a LiDAR carrying machine, it'll be a bit different. You'll choose a different aircraft. If I was strapping a LiDAR under an aircraft, it'd be an X8 machine. And all it has to do is run a cube. I'd have a cube on it. I'd be running Arduino on it. I'd have a hair link connected. And I know I'm good to go. It's all about what you're carrying, really. They're not bringing anything really new to the party other than going, we're not Chinese. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing it's bringing to the party. Everything else is kind of meh. Or am I being a bit harsh? Or am I being too harsh?
No, I don't think so. And I think but then Bruce will tell us it's all technology. I've just sent you a link if you want to come along. Oh, here's Bobby. New Skydio and DJI's badass. Well, there we are. That's the opinion from Bobby. They are a badass.
It's the same with all technology, isn't it? Well, we saw cell phones now. It's incremental. People are saying the iPhone 15 is not worth it. There's nothing really to make you wow. The new GoPro 12. It's just a little bit of an improvement, software upgrade on the old one. Everything is just incremental. Even computers, why would you buy a new computer? It's 10% faster than last year's one. Do you need that extra speed? So I think when all technologies mature, they reach a point where people don't upgrade every generation. I've got the computer I'm using here is like, I don't know, it's an i5 2600 or something. So that's like, what is that? That's 10 generations behind, but it still works. So I use it, and there's no compelling reasons to spend money now. And I think manufacturing will have to scale to accommodate that, because we've reached peak drone in terms of new purchases. Everyone that's going to want one's got one, and they're not going to want to upgrade until something really gee whiz comes along, or it's been so many successive generations that it's worth it to upgrade. Alan Yu put a video out this morning. He's looking at the Mini 4, and he said, is it worth upgrading? He says, I'll probably upgrade when my batteries for my current drone reach the point where they need replacement. And rather than replace the batteries for my Mini 2 or whatever it is, I will just go to the Mini 4. By a Fly More package. And that's where you can see there's a valid, step, but you're not going to go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 like some people do.
The people that go the 2, the 3, the 4, they are typically like the fanboys. They're the people that have to have the latest stuff. People like me, I'd be happy with the Mini 2. If I still have a Mini 2, I'll fly that. All I fly now is a Mavic Pro 2. And I fly the Mavic Pro 2 because they're so bloody good. It's proven its worth time after time. And that aircraft now is how old? And I feel no reason, no inclination to upgrade, change it, or anything else.
It's his only fan.
Fanboy. I'm a fanboy.
Yeah, only fan.
so why would you go from a 2 to a 3? Does it really from a 3 to a 4? Does it bring anything new to the party?
It's just got the multi-directional sensors.
It's fascinating. Thanks, Coolcat. It's fascinating. Is it, Bobby? Is it really fascinating?
The only thing that Enterprise tends to bring to a drone. So the main things for Enterprise are you'll end up with thermal on it. Typically, you end up with good thermals like on DJI. You end up with better zooms, but you can get that on the DJI 3. Cine anyway, and the Mavic 3. The Enterprise version brings along the thermal to that, and it'll bring along the RTK. Now they're the two big things that are going to be brought in: the RTK, the thermal. So it's interesting. I don't know that Enterprise brings massive amounts more, really, does it? Get slightly better weatherproofing as well,
and more expensive.
Yeah, and you pay through the nose for it, of course.
They often come in a really nice case, with big clips on it, and all that sort of thing.
Pelican case, that's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean,
it's worth it just for the case. Forget the drone.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're saying what's going to be next. So the Mini 5, for example, will it come with ProRes? Because they're getting so far now with the minis and the sensors. DJI now bringing out a Mini every 6-9 months. They bring out a new one to try and keep the sales keep going and stuff. What's going to be next? Is it going to be ProRes? You imagine a Mini 5 and it goes ProRes. That's what more can you bring?
It's not going to be attractive to the consumer market. They don't care if it's got ProRes. And to the enterprise market, so if someone's doing it professionally and wants that high quality video, that might be worth it. But the average guy that uses it to take snaps and chooses a Mini because it's sub 250, doesn't have to register it. Those things, ProRes would mean nothing.
I don't know. It would. People would jump onto that like you wouldn't believe, Bruce. I think people would jump on that and go, "Oh, it's got ProRes. I've got to have it." And I think it would generate a lot of sales for them very quickly. However, I don't know how ProRes will handle being installed. Having
full frame sensor. That's what they need. Full frame. That'd be fantastic.
They'll hop in the skip away from, being good enough for an awful lot of tasks. That's what they're knocking towards, isn't it? And they're nudging the performance, and you'll find it hard to justify. Well, let's say 1 kilo sized drones from other manufacturers. You'll be hard pushed to pay the extra money for that thing.
But they don't want to massacre their own market. They don't want to dismantle their own market for the things like the Mavic and the Air and all that sort of stuff. So they're probably holding back a lot on the Mini. They could do a lot more with the Mini than they do. And each release, I think, they could also put a lot more into each release, but they won't because they need to keep bringing out that little bit better, little bit better, little bit better, but not better than this one if you want something better. You know, like it's a very fine balancing act, I think, and DJI are very good at it because they have so many tiny incremental releases. Because what's the Mini 4 got? It's got obstacle avoidance going sideways. Is there anything else?
And up a bit as well, isn't it?
And, oh, okay, yeah.
It's full 360. So
now this is going to sound silly. This part will sound silly. I do, well, because that's generally what I do. I do like that they've thought a bit more about the lens protector, and then when you put the prop holder on and it all sits on the ground. Now that is a silly little detail, but those are the sort of details, if you are operating commercially, that you want, that you can put the thing down. You know, it's a silly little details, but that's the sort of thing they're finessing.
Did I hear?
And go on, mate.
Well, did I hear somewhere they've hard limited the altitude? They've enforced the 400-foot limit.
Yes, no, I've heard that as well, Bruce.
Yeah,
they've actually got that kind of written into stone in the firmware.
So if you just take off at the bottom of a hill and you want to go and fly up the hill 600 feet, you're out of luck.
No, don't.
Because legally you can do it.
Facebook image that you see everywhere. How high is 400 feet really? Look, I'm flying from the top of a hill, and I would like to. Yeah. Next, you'll be telling us about aeroplanes on conveyor belts.
Yeah, but actually, that's a legitimate use case. I mean, a lot of people do like to fly up hills and get shots from the vista and everything, and fly down the hill and through the little valleys. You can't do that if you're height limited to 400 feet above takeoff.
Well, it depends if the thing's got a terrain model for the entire planet built in, or it's pulling data in real time for the terrain.
I doubt it. It's probably just referencing from the takeoff site.
Yeah, which then
midway.
But that screws you for mapping. You see, if you're doing mapping of a valley of some kind and you want to side map it, so instead of taking off at the bottom and not having to walk all the way to the bloody top to do it, now you're going to have to walk all the way up to the top because it's better to fly down than it is up, which just makes it more tedious for you. So yeah, that's not very good, is it at all? Really, to be honest.
Well, yeah, it's interesting that they've done that. And
in the name of safety. But what's the bit you can still fly 7 kilometers away? I mean, seriously,
20,
DJI is such a whatever it is. It's like, if they're serious about safety, BV loss is still illegal without a waiver in most places. Yet you're going to let people do it. And so why are you?
Got it on the head there. That it's then that is a way to preserve your market, isn't it, for your commercial stuff? Yeah, fair point, Louis. Fair point. It pains me to say that, but fair point. Good rangefinder for anything over 100 feet. Yeah, they're tiny things, aren't they? Bobby's saying earlier that they, the NDAA stuff.
They do.
It's a tiny market. I know America's a big place, but it's a tiny market to hit to make your products work for them. And you've got to remember, anything that comes out of America is subject to ITAR, which seems to just be forgotten all the time. So American manufacturers are already in it's a smallish market compared to India and China, and they can't export to India and China easily. So they're on a slippery slope.
Oh, sorry. One of the market that DJI completely owns as well. There's one more market DJI completely rules in: search and rescue and emergency services. They have that so well stitched up because their drones are easy to use, their thermal is great, and their aircraft, apart from the initial M210 issues, their aircraft are very good in conditions.
Well, Bobby's saying only ITAR based on certain specs. Well, one of the specs is the autopilot. So that's quite a big part of all that sort of thing. Mick will be able to tell you more about the ITAR and how it affects. I forget the agreement that America has with Australia. It's one of the few countries that has it, but it's a problem, and it's swept under the carpet generally, much all the time by the industry in America. It's why 3DR made the gear in Mexico, Another guy went to Australia and magically had his idea, and as long as the idea was had in Australia, then it was an Australian autopilot. Then he went back and manufactured in America, but he had the idea in Australia. So it's a real dance, DroneSense being bought by Axiom was a smart move. Yeah, we see that. And Louis saying you're wrong, Mark. So Louis says you're wrong. Don't want geo restrictions.
Yeah,
well, then they'll buy auto.
I disagree with that. I mean, I'm willing to bet if you did a survey of emergency services in the UK, I bet it's DJI stuff. I will place my bottom dollar. 90% of the kit, if not more, is DJI. You know, and that's in the UK. And I'm willing to bet most of the world's the same. Don't get me wrong, the geozones can be annoying, but you can unlock them. They're not, you know, they're not impossibly locked down.
Fight. Yeah, Louis will come in a minute, then we'll all be in trouble.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you can just hear him, can't you? You can hear what he's saying. And actually, I've forgotten, we've got the king of ITAR here, really, because Bruce was, did they, when you made your missile, did they knock on the door for ITAR then, or?
No, in fact, the crazy thing was that the New Zealand government said when someone from Iran contacted me, or was it Pakistan? I can't remember, and wanted to buy the plans and whatever, and I contacted our local government. They said there's nothing in place. You can sell whatever you like to them. Not a problem. Go ahead. Oh, my goodness, you know. So they probably didn't even know about what ITAR was and what it meant.
Oh, what's happened now?
You've gone to sleep, Gary.
Am I still here?
You're still here in spirit, but you're frozen with your eyes closed. You're sleeping. Oh, just a minute. You've got that one bit per hour of bandwidth going there.
Hey, no, don't. This is our high-speed internet here now. And I'll tell you what's happening here a lot now is people are buying Starlink from Mozambique and installing it here. It's still illegal here, but we're beginning to see Starlink antennas popping up everywhere. And it's just happened that in Zimbabwe, people did exactly the same. And it was also banned. And the Zimbabwean government just went, yeah, okay, all right.
Why did they ban it?
Because
reasons. Oh,
reasons, exactly. Reasons, exactly.
You see, what Starlink does, it circumvents every government gateway to the internet. So governments around the world that control the internet to a degree or block certain.
But isn't that a personal hygiene thing being circumvented? Or am I thinking of a different word?
It is. Yes. You have to wear a hat and everything.
Yeah. Whereas Starlink just doesn't. It just goes straight up to the sats, you know, and it's basically the internet. It is kind of almost like a free. It's the internet as free as it's going to be for a lot more people than they've ever known. That's what it does.
But it's another one of those technology things, as I mentioned, that poll that just sort of arrives on scene as a huge game changer. And Bobby, I came here to fly hot air balloons years ago.
I think he wants to know, was it a plane or a ship?
Yes, I sailed. I'd love to actually sail back up. Yes, I sailed down and with the settlers. That's all I am. Yes, we came down and we put a flag in the ground for ourselves, and we made a farm, and then and so on and so forth.
Well, Gary, how long does it take to use the hot air balloon to get from England then to South Africa? Because obviously
that would take a while. That would take a very, very long time. You'd have trouble getting across the equator. But yeah, no, I flew when I was about 22, I think. So last year before last, I came and as part of the opening of Velocity and various things. And then I fell into the drone world because of a TV program called Big Cat Diary, where they couldn't get over the Mara River in Kenya because it was in flood. And I was just flying model airplanes, and I said at the time, "How hard could it be to put a camera on a model airplane?" And that's where it all started. And I discovered it was quite hard. So that was and then if you ever see a thing called I forgot what it's called, John Downer Productions doing Spy in the Herd, the one about wildebeest. So as part of, I was prodding and poking his cameras for that, where they put cameras in rocks and pretend to be crocodiles and all that sort of a thing. A little tiny helicopter as well. I can't remember what those little electric helicopters were back, the early ones that were about 250 size, I think, something like that. So yeah, that's getting the camera. Yeah, exactly, John. That's right. But it's not hard to put the camera on. But even firing the camera, putting a servo on the camera, knowing where the camera's pointing before you've got FPV and all that.
Making sure all the flash powder doesn't blow off in the slipstream.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah, and you're having to stand there and crank. It's just really not easy.
The trained hamster dies on you mid-flight.
Exactly. That's right. That's right. Exactly. So yeah, so that brought me in, and it was like, oh well, there must be an autopilot, or there must be some way, and there was back in the day. I'm sure you have one or reviewed one, Bruce. Do you remember that Fred Marks co-pilot thing, which was using the light sensors.
Infrared sensors? Yeah, that was great. FMS, I think, was it FMS?
FMA,
yeah.
Wasn't it?
FMA, yeah, that's right. FMA, yeah. I had one of those. It worked really well. It's surprisingly good.
It was the same. It's the same technology as is in those thermometers that you put in your ear, and was on the space shuttle. But thermocouples.
Yeah,
right?
Pyrometers, I think they call them.
Something like that. Yeah.
Another interesting.
No, he's young.
No, he's old.
Sorry, what's that?
Another interesting technology that was used was electrostatic, where they measured the voltage potential of each wingtip, and because there's a static gradient through the atmosphere with very high amplification, they could determine the angle of bank and the angle of pitch using just the electrostatics. It was they used that on some larger drones or larger autonomous aircraft at some stage I think it was in the USA. I remember reading a very good paper on it.
And then Bobby saying the DJI Response CX-10 will be worth nothing. What does that mean, Bobby? What do you mean it'll be worth nothing? They don't need to respond to it at all. They can already beat it. I don't understand. Why do they need to respond? And hang on, just wait a minute. Oh yeah, they've sold more than they will in the year anyway. Then this last minute. I don't know. Archie Pilot could use 3G. I thought Starlink next. We've used 4G a few times. It's quite easy to set up. 5G as well.
Yeah. You don't. The 3G thing is well gone now. You're well onto 4 and 5 now. And it won't be long before you can stick a Starlink on something like a decent size 5 to 6 meter aircraft, and you'll be able to fly and use Starlink as your receiving.
Will you though? Because you're going to have a pretty high gain antenna. It's got to be pointed in roughly the right direction.
I don't see why you couldn't. I mean, how would that affect aerodynamics? How much of a tilt before the autopilot couldn't correct for a subtle dish change, as long as the surface under the dish is shaped right?
You're going to have a big enough dish. You need a pretty big craft to carry a dish that's going to be big enough.
Yeah, but if you're flying something that's 8 meters across, if you've got an 8 meter span.
Yeah, but my tiny whoops will never work.
No, your tiny whoops are not going to be for that, Bruce. No.
Oh, Bobby, you're in a mood for a fight. I read your comment earlier, but doesn't focus on enterprise. Really?
I would disagree with that slightly. So they
I don't know. Maybe people in the comments arguing, but I think Flight. What a fantastic video, and how flippin' clever are you? Have anyone has seen it? I can't remember what the title of the video is, but it's about bringing something back so it's unstable, then to make the airframe more efficient. I think I understand it. I'll pretend I understand what he's aiming at doing, but I don't really. No, I think I understand it. But what a fantastic video, and it made me think of I love that bit of relentless flight testing. You take it out, tune it. I love that bit, and I don't do enough of that anymore. I love that bit. So Think Flight, go to his channel, watch his latest video. It's great. Here endeth that. That was really really is that. So it's
That's
not
why the CG on my DLG is so far back. It makes for maximum efficiency.
Yes.
Can I hear you like to tune aircraft, Gary?
Yeah.
Do you like doing the setup? Do you like doing the compass stuff?
Yeah, all of that. That's because it's boring. No, yeah, I do. No, I do.
Guess
Like,
what I
can do it. He can do it in his sleep. He often does.
Guess what I spent most of my day doing.
And what were you tuning?
100 of his drones.
One at a time. Well, Bobby's saying that the enterprise makes 10 to 15% of DJI sales. Then most of their sales consumer. So, what are we saying there?
Is that by volume or by
exactly,
dollar amount?
or by value? Yes. So how do we want to do that?
So you imagine they sell Mini 2s like 1.0, but or Mini 3 or whatever. They sell them like 1.0, but they're only like 600, 700 pounds or dollars or whatever. You go and buy one M310T. The price of them is 10 grand.
What about an Inspire 3?
Yeah, their profit on how many minis would they have to sell profit wise to match one M310 or one M300? I would love to know that, because I'm willing to bet they make a damn sight more.
I think
he's here for fighting. He's here for fighting.
So margin, yes. Volume, no. So it's just that the idea is, I mean, what I'm saying, DJI makes great enterprise products, but it's not like their main focus as a company. And that's one of the things I think, I have to give Scotty a credit. I've been very critical of Scotty in the past. I joked with a buddy of mine. I'm like, man, I went on the product requirements. They were just like, get Bobby to shut the fuck up, because they made all of these different capabilities. And I was like, oh my God, wow, they really listened. And this is, so those are the things I think are important, worth mentioning. DJI's products and Bruce brought up a great point. The consumer products really are what move the needle.
So what are we saying there?
Is it by volume or by
exactly, or by value? Yes. So what is it's
temporal anomaly.
How does that work?
Or Mini 3 or whatever. They sell them like 1.0, but they're only like,
where's that coming from?
Pounds or dollars or whatever.
Is this an episode of Doctor Who?
10.
Okay. Who changed time?
10 grand.
What about an Inspire 3?
Is that your side, Bobby? Did you join us and then?
Is there an audio loop or something, or what?
Yeah.
Has time caught up with us?
All right. Have we? What a waste of time travel. We should just sat here and just wondered why that time travel hadn't happened and taken no advantage of it whatsoever.
Hell.
Is that over? Is that experience finished?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Did that happen for the audience, or was it just us?
What, their audio in the background? That was me. I'm sorry. Yeah. So a few things I just want to bring up though about the Skydio product, and more importantly the DJI products. DJI is able to lead the enterprise space because their hardware and their software is I think the ecosystem around it is superior, right? They give, and this is, I think it's actually the Skydio Extend part. And I don't want to keep beating on Skydio. I've given them a very hard, a little bit too rough of a time. And I think that admittedly they make, a phenomenal piece of hardware. This new Skydio Extend platform though is a little bit more of a neutered SDK. And everyone says DJI is not very open. Well, in this case, Skydio is less open, which is fine. Maybe it's a crawl, walk, run approach, but DJI has been so good at creating the developer tools that enable people to make their platforms more valuable, like the drone senses or the sky browsers or whatever XYZ application for XYZ enterprise use case. That's a key differentiator. And I think that they've just been able to build off of the existing consumer products, and the cameras are a big part. You're correct. I forgot your name. You have to forgive me. Mark, sorry, I actually wasn't tuning in very often, and none of you guys ever use your real names, so that's why it gets confusing. And I only know Bruce.
Legal reasons.
That's my real name.
reason.
YouTube back in the day. Mark brought up a good point about thermal cameras give it certain properties, and same with RTK. But these are things that are very, I would say, non-existent, not just in consumer, but like in like most American UAS platforms, unless you get a specialized application. And it's not even their camera they're making. It's this third-party gimbal, a third-party, the FLIR, for example. Like again, I'm going to give Skydio credit. This new Boson Plus, it's fantastic, right? But I assume Skydio is only going to be the only one using it for about a year. Everybody else will be able to catch up. How valuable is that radiometry for the police officer, the non-radiometric operator? I don't know. It'll be up for discussion. And I think in terms of like the price, we'll never be able to compete with DJI on price. I think that, at the end of the day, it's I hate to say this, like, I learned this at Autel. Just when you think they can't go cheaper, they can go cheaper. Like their margin is a whole different thing. But it's not the margin. Like, despite enterprise making up about 10 to 15%, maybe at the most we'll say 20% of DJI's total business, they have done a great job defending that moat because of the payloads. Like that H20T that the M300 has is years old, and it's still the gold standard. I mean, you look at what the blue guys have to use, like a Raptor camera that costs 30 grand for the camera alone. That's wild. And I think that this is again, I have to give credit where credit's due. Skydio has really exceeded my expectations because of the hardware. They were never someone, I mean, they're a software company. That's based on their valuation, I think, the company ethos. But the hardware is always a little bit lacking compared to the Chinese competition, right? It actually, the hardware fit and finish is actually really good for a Western company, but the capabilities weren't there. Now they've closed that gap, and I think it's inspiring. I think that I'll use Tesla as an example. Like in the early days, they were the only electric car company, and they still, I think, have a demonstrable lead, range, charging infrastructure, etc. But now you see a lot of electric cars, especially in Europe, and they're much more affordable. And that technology has become commodified. And I can see Skydio ultimately like enabling better cameras for the rest of the drone industry that's not Chinese. And this is something that this sucks, man. Like when we watch these videos, well, not these interviews, but in general, the conversation about blue or NDA compliant, it's a geopolitical discussion. And it's a shame because this is an industry that, man, you guys are literally on we're on 3 different continents. And we're having a conversation, and I don't give a shit about your political views, right? It shouldn't really matter because we're here to talk about the technology and an industry that we're passionate about and we love. But we're caught up in this, I think, a geopolitical mess that doesn't just impact drones; it impacts electric vehicles, it impacts a number of different industries that we're in. And I think it's having
also but if you're going to do it, having a system where you have green, blue, and NDAA, it's like, so what are we doing today then? They've already made it complicated, haven't they? I
don't think that was their intent. I think that the blue system is only for the warfighter, and that's what it's meant to be. And DIU hasn't promised anything else. I think other folks have kind of used that framework or piggybacked off of it to build other things. But if you read the NDAA, which in order to be blue certified, you have to be NDA compliant. You go into it, there's certain components you can't use. And then ultimately, like how the company is comprised, domiciled, and where it's headquartered, those matter too. And those are things that ultimately, like, we don't control. This is a regulatory aspect. I was talking with someone today who, I think they make the best parachutes in the world, AVSS. And it's like, man, there's 2 spheres in the whole drone industry. There's the regulatory side and there's the tech side. And what we can do all that we want on the tech side, if the regulations don't catch up, it doesn't matter. And the regulations for years could have given us, the whole carte blanche to do whatever we wanted, but the tech wasn't there. And it's really a shame. There's really not some balance. I don't have the right answer for it. I do think that banning Chinese drones today, and maybe banning them in general, probably not a good idea. Preventing them from being used for defense, totally understandable, right? Like every country has their own security concerns, but I think it's become a little bit disappointing. I think it's become a little bit of trade protectionism that ultimately has backfired because the cost to entry increases, and those type of customers, like smaller drone service providers, they don't have the budgets of tens of thousands of dollars to buy a new kit and new gear. They want to buy the DJI stuff. Their whole business is built on that. The larger guys,
it's coming the other way now with the emergence as beginning what we're talking about at the top, really, about like all the people at DSEI talking about small, cheap warfighter drones, cheaper, better, whatever. All the big companies are trying to come down in size and price and whatever. No, we can do better. And they're like, no,
but those,
no way.
They can, but the reason is that they've been paying $80,000 or $60,000 or whatever for the Switchblade. So it's like these Ukrainians who are using to defend their, using technology to defend their country. For them, whatever gets the job done, if they can prove they can get the job done with something that costs a few $1,000s versus tens of thousands of dollars, they're going to do it. The one thing, and whatever we can talk, I'd be interested in hearing everyone's thoughts, particularly on the defense and counter UAS side, because what we're enabling in Ukraine with the West, I'm concerned, is going to come back and cause us problems, because it's not that hard to do the stuff that we're all doing, right? We've all been doing this for many, and that's this problem of like, man, I'm in my 30s. I wasn't alive when the U.S. armed the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, or and those arms were then later used to take over that country. Like, there's a lot of this type of the enemy of my enemy is my friend mentality that the West has used. Again, this is some geopolitical shit that unfortunately I don't want to get wrapped up in, but we are. I'm just trying to, build cool technology, and everybody else is, again, I know all three of you are very excited about the tech and passionate about it, but we've been roped into this thing that we don't have control over. So at the end of the day, all we can do is just focus on creating better solutions for the industry. And I think Skydio, whether or not I agree with their go-to-market, they've made a great piece of hardware. Like, man, the 3-axis gimbal alone, really impressive. It's hard for me to be objectively critical. I mentioned the controller. For how cool the drone is, the controller is meh. That probably shouldn't matter. This extend thing that they're offering, their API access, it's not as robust and in-depth as you want, but not everybody needs that.
This gimbal will do. This gimbal will do everything that one will do.
Well,
no, it doesn't go like that.
We've had 3-axis gimbals for years, pointing up and down. Look at a little parrot.
This will do exactly the same.
Is that might be a 2-axis? I don't know. Is there a yaw as well?
No, you're right. It won't do yaw. But yours, but they've been around.
In the Chinese drones for years. And Gremsy is one of the only folks who's done it. But on the blue side, I can tell you, like, if you look at SRR, I'm pretty sure none of the other companies besides Skydio, the current rev, have a 3rd-axis on their gimbal. It's very like,
I've just seen how dusty this thing is. I haven't been clean this.
Right. And the Next Vision Raptor I told you about for 30 grand, that's a 2-axis gimbal.
And what's the benefit of a 3-axis gimbal then?
A better stabilization.
I've never seen. I see cheap drones. I don't see any yaw dispatch.
On the cheap Chinese drones, the cheap Chinese drones have a 3rd-axis. Like, even the Mavic Mini has a micro 3-axis gimbal. Parrot drones, like, I love the Disco. You can tell it has some digital stabilization. Skydio is using digital stabilization on the yacht, and so does Next Vision. And ultimately, sometimes you can see cropping on the imagery, and it can hurt. I mean, I can tell you this: it is really hard to find a 3-axis gimbal, especially one that's NDA compliant. So the fact that these guys did it, what I'm concerned about is does it cost hundreds of millions of dollars to build this stuff? Maybe for the first time, sure. But the second or third time, there'll be more companies that'll be using the sensor or technology for a 3rd-axis gimbal. I wonder when. And will they be able to offer it for the same price? I think it'll be cheaper. I think that at the end of the day, Skydio did a Tesla move and proved to everybody that America can compete the way electric vehicles are a real viable solution for transportation.
I don't see the difficulty with a 3-axis drone. We've got 3-axis MEMS, accelerometers, gyros, and it's just adding an axis to an already 2-axis drone. It's no magic involved. It's just adding a 3rd-axis.
It's an extra motor, my understanding, an extra motor controller.
There's no rocket surgery involved.
People haven't done it, and I can tell you, the companies who've built their own gimbals have spent hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, to figure it out.
Alexi Moss, am I thinking correctly for the controller?
Yes.
That's all you need: an Alexi Moss and some decent motors, and you're sorted.
I mean, I think that there's a lot of opportunities to make it better. It's just, it's pretty hard. I thought of this too. I said, if it was so easy, people would be doing it.
Or do you need to do it? I think. Oh, look out! Oh, here we go. Here we go. All right, everyone in the audience, good luck, because here comes Louis. He's gonna.
Here's my question.
Here we go. I'm gonna hide.
Before Louis goes for the jugular. So here's my question, then, Bobby. So the Skydio is a great looking machine. It's a great bit of kit. You said it matches anything from the Chinese. However, there's one area the West never seems to manage the Chinese, and that is mass production of the product. We just cannot produce something at their scale. That seems to be our biggest problem.
You're right. But I would also argue that's part of like a way bigger problem that's not just drones. I mean, this device, right? Like the computer I'm talking to you on the screen, we have to learn how to do things better. And I think that consumer electronic manufacturing, China has been, they've got a generation of people that are experts at doing it. And they can do it in a way like I had a call today to someone who does contract manufacturing for drones at scale. And they're not like Foxconn level, they're just much smaller. And they wanted, multiple millions of dollar opportunities to kind of do this type of work. And it's like, man, not a lot of companies are getting that type of business. And I've heard Skydio can produce hundreds of drones a week, which is actually really impressive, in my opinion. But it's not the thousands of drones a week, right? So that's 5,200 drones they can produce a year max, which I'll tell you is extremely impressive. And you know how much the Chinese ones can pop out. But the fact that it's incremental, we're making progress, is the thing that I'm trying to focus on. I'm trying to be a little bit more optimistic and really positive in the outlook, because we have no other alternative. It could be the same old business as always. And I've realized this too. Skydio has hundreds. Skydio has more software engineers than the entire blue or green ecosystem combined. All the companies, right? They have powers defined by the distribution of resources and capabilities. If you're a realist, right? And by those definitions, Skydio is very powerful. They got a ton of resources and a ton of capabilities. We can't overlook that part. And it's just, what are the secondary and tertiary impacts of this new product? Like I said, the DJI response. DJI is working on we've seen a tiny, much smaller drone-in-a-box solution that is able to supposedly interact with vehicles directly. That thing is going to be priced half of what the Skydio product sells for. Half, not the current one, but the existing, sorry, not the new one, but the existing dock solution. And it's a DJI product, it's probably going to work a certain way, and it's going to give you the SDK tools to customize your workflow and application. And at the end of the day, it helps all of us consumers or enterprise users who want the best product for the best possible price. So, I don't know.
If you're in a fight, I'll invite Sean as well. This will really go Pete Tong then. Louis, welcome, Louis. Tell us what you got there.
No, I was playing around with $200 3-axis gimbal.
Fimi?
Made in China.
Is that the Fimi?
No, Siwi or whatever. I don't know. Come on.
There's a box.
Yeah.
Well, it works, but I agree with you. Skydio has a big advantage over everyone else on the software. Unfortunately, the first drone had a lousy camera, so hardware problem. Remains to be seen, this camera. But the thing is, for the market they're not aiming for the pristine, ultra high image quality. They are aiming for the good enough camera quality. So yeah, that's one issue. If we go to the industrial market, then image quality becomes important. One thing that is not technical, either hardware or software, is the positioning of the company. And Skydio has a large distribution dealer problem with their equipment. So yeah, we all remember that you could not buy a Skydio in Europe, or you could not buy a Skydio outside of US, basically. So the thing is, will they want to expand to the world, or they don't even have the the capacity of expanding, because they might be at full tilt producing for their existing customer base.
This is true. Again, you guys know me and the stuff I post about Skydio. Like, they're not like fans of me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I probably could never work with that company because of me being openly critical, right? And I've tried. The camera is modular, which allows them to upgrade certain things. And to be fair, Louis, I totally see what you're saying, but I remember when DJI just had basically like Colin Gwynn as the distributor, right? And there was a period of time where they were like the only ones who were doing this stuff. And I think that they have an opportunity to grow into that market. And I know for a fact, like the VAR relationship has been fictitious. The margins aren't great. They cut out some people in their dealer network. The camera can get better, but the camera can get better. And they built the platform to be modular. It's fascinating. The payload is modular. The gimbal is not. So there's like these little modules. I presume they're going to be developing so they can get.
Bobby, you remember that the orange drones had the replaceable cameras, the hotel ones.
You're right. It was the whole assembly, though, which is true.
Yeah.
In this case, the gimbal is separate from the camera themselves. And I will tell you, the Orange Drone Company has a unique opportunity to completely can own the whole drone market if they wanted to. I think for reasons they choose not to. Skydio did something that I think the Chinese drone companies don't do, is that they really listened to the end user and became like customer obsessed. And they weren't they realized that if we were customer obsessed, it'll lead to more sales. Whereas in Chinese companies, the business has to be there first. Like, there isn't this customer discovery type of thing. Like, there's almost the concept of product management, particularly the Orange Company, is very different. Like the mechanical shutter, they could have made a mechanical shutter. They could have given it to you and would have cost them, not millions of dollars, not even $1 million. It would have cost less than $1 million to give you. They didn't do it for a number of different reasons, because they wanted to see the business case. They wanted pre-orders in advance to show that. And that to me shows a cultural difference where the West, we have an opportunity, I think, to catch up. I think that.
But there, I believe DJI is moving on a different direction, because DJI is always pushing the boundaries of what the customers might want. They not so much listen to what customers want. Otherwise, we'd still be with Phantom 4 cameras on the Mavics, and they went the other way while they were building their enterprise structure of drones. So, and now there is a clear cut between enterprise quality drones, where you can have better cameras and better sensors. Basically, the drones look very similar. I believe there is a software limitation that disables the SDK between the enterprise drones and the commercial ones, and I'm mentioning specifically the Mavic 3 series, because it's the lower entry point on the enterprise. But DJI is always opening new opportunities. So the way they're segmenting the market, mini drones, the Airs, the Mavics, they have the market quite well segmented, and they're pursuing that line. And see, there is a lot of crossover between capabilities between these three drones. But there is always that function that you need that will make you go to the other range. So if you have the Mini 4 or Mini 3 and you need that specific thing, you have to go to the Air. Or if you have the Air and you need another specific feature, you have to go to the Mavic. So and they're segmenting the customers like that. And I don't think they are doing customer-based development and follow-up. They are just doing their own path. But yeah. On the other hand, Skydio might have been listening to customers, but a specific target of customers. And that is the government and military customers.
So I think you're right in many ways. I think the one thing that you have to realize, Skydio, okay, I'm not some finance whiz, and I know very little about like venture capital, but the people I've spoken to who know a lot about this, they don't know as much about the tech that Skydio has, but they're like, man, the valuation that they're trying to justify, they have to sell for this much amount of money for people to get paid. And the only way to get there with these, justify these, the multiples, is a software company. So if you think about like, and I'll be straight with you, I this is why I'm actually so impressed. They proved the hardware. Yeah, we can build the hardware. They always show you they can build kind of the software. Now they show they can build you the hardware. The next software Skydio is going to bring you is going to compete with the same, unfortunately, the same partners that we're all used to. Like, they're very vertically integrated. And I look at I look at Apple to an example, and I think it'll be to not to Skydio's benefit in the long run, because they should create an ecosystem that plays nice the way DJI did and everybody else. But they want you to process all the information on their cloud, and they're going to build their own tools to let you do it. And I wouldn't be surprised if they build their own building information management system and their own mapping platform, which you've seen. They have the capabilities to do so, right? And it'll be, in my opinion, that's how they get there. And the question is, like, what happens to the Pix4D's drone deploys and the drone senses? And again, I don't have the right answer for that. This is just my observation. Like, at the end of the day, you're giving
I think you'll find Pix4D. Well, sorry, that was a very pompous way of starting that. My opinion is that Pix4D has got for instance, such an installed user base of surveyors that know how they're doing it, and they've got their workflow, that they'll keep using Pix4D. And if you want to bring the breakthrough product in, it better be adjacent to free, and it better be really good. It better really be bringing extra stuff, because a lot of people aren't going to move on, and that's also they're going to have that problem with the workflows with the aircraft.
Yeah,
I think mapping is
it's not the problem. That is not the problem. With the money they have and the money they can raise, they can go to Parrot and say, hand over Pix4D to us. It's a dollar thing.
And
Parrot's already handed over Pix4D.
I think there's two things. Well, this is my old boss at Ascent. He would tell me all the time, he's like, dude, this is really hard what we're doing. And it's true. Like, this stuff, I know it's based on, hobbyist technologies at its core and certain components, but it's really hard not just to build the hardware, but the software to get it to work seamlessly. And if it was easy, we'd have way more people doing it successfully. We have a lot of people trying, not a lot of people able to pull it off. And so I
think we're
that from my point of view, the biggest advantage that DJI has over anyone else is the commercial structure, the distributors, the resellers. That is something that until someone starts looking at that point of the business, nobody is going to go anywhere, and that from the orange thing.
Yeah. Some of that is margin based, though. For example, it is okay. So I have bought a lot. I used to own stock in a number of different publicly traded drone companies, and I didn't make money in any of it. And a friend of mine was like, "Oh man, you should look at their quarterly reports and see how they're actually making money." Most of these folks are making money selling DJI equipment because the margins are so high. And if the margins are so high, that actually it means it's an attractive product to sell and distribute. If you can't give your network those margins, they don't want to sell it in the same way. And I can tell you, Skydio's margins are like a single digit compared to a single digit margin compared to DJI's 30-something%. That's some crazy stuff. And so why would I want to sell something if I don't make any margin off of it? That's just a reality. And again, that comes to the larger part of how do we make things in the West that are affordable, that are low cost? I don't have the right answer for it. Someone, a business associate of mine had a brilliant idea. He's like, dude, we need to get grants, kind of like a PPP loan thing where we, the West, buy the hardware to manufacture the product, buy the machines to help us make the motors, buy the pick and place assembly, buy and create our own version of Bamboo 3D printers, right? We have to figure this stuff out in the long run, but we can't solve these in 1 to 3, maybe even 5 years. This is going to take a whole generation. Like, hopefully you guys got kids that like to do this drone stuff, because we're going to need help.
Well, I would have done, but unfortunately the regulations are stopping them flying. I would have loved to have done that sort of thing.
I mean, this is a hard thing to go through. And the one part we look at TypeCert, I'll look at TypeCert as an example. Let the guys with the money take the risk and prove it out. Now, and I don't believe there's as much advantage to the first mover as there used to be. And I'm pretty conservative with my approach to things. So I love to see what's possible. I give Mike Ross and Brian and Guillaume and all those guys at Skydio a lot of credit for taking a huge risk. This product, Skydio has probably bet the farm on. If it doesn't sell well, they're not going to be around. But I think it's going to sell well. That's just my opinion, just based on, and I could be wrong.
Yeah,
in a general
I agree. And I was a purchaser of the Skydio, the previous version. But unfortunately, US only sales. But yeah, you know the same person I know that has one, and it's destined to me. But I think that it really depends. We have to look at the results of the drone. We have to look at what is possible to do with their SDK, whatever they call it. No. And Skydio isn't a drone company. It's a software company that builds drones. But at the same time, I also see quite a large number of companies developing drones based on Autopilot. And the last 2-3 years, the number of partners that Autopilot managed to gather around the Autopilot stack, and different kind of drones, not only the regular, what we call the normal drones, the 4 propellers or 6 propellers, but the VTOLs, the eVTOLs, planes, all those kinds of strange vehicles that have different purposes on the market. There is a good market brewing and growing around this kind of drones.
Well, I was talking to an evening near CAG as well. He's come. He's also coming in for an argument. It looks like Sean's stealing for a fight in the comments as well. And Sean's at DroneX, and he's got a stand doing stuff there. I'm sure that'll come out. But I was talking to Philip today, sort of semi on that Autopilot thing, of saying to him, well, just because he's there with QPilot, just how many cubes are in? How many machines have got cubes at that DroneX? And he reckons lots.
Yeah.
So I've asked him to take photos for me, and we'll see if we can do something. But he reckons lots of them are sat there with cubes, either running PX4 or Autopilot. And Skydio shouldn't discount that market that's out there. There's a lot of people pushing.
No, I don't know, Gary, because how many people want a VTOL? How many people?
Oh, true. Yes, okay. I hear you there, but I'll tell you.
Those are niche markets within a drone niche market. So, and the Autopilot, in my opinion, is doing very well going after these niche markets. PX4 not so much, because they have a different licensing model. So we are not aware of what they're doing so openly. Although the guys that are building niche drones for specific needs using Autopilot are very well public.
Well, that's, and almost, as you know, I've said we've reached peak consumer drone a long time ago, a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. Peak consumer drone. I think we're almost getting to the point where we won't be far off peak commercial drone either, because there's only so many properly. You always do. Just argue with me in a second. There's only so many qualified surveyors, qualified inspection people in the world, that have got that can use them properly. It's not such a huge market, I don't think. It's big.
You're
Okay,
only
it can
thinking,
double. It could probably go 4 times the size it is now. Well, I bet it can't go 5 times the size it is now.
no, you're only thinking about specific needs, the ones that you know.
True.
Yes, the market
Okay.
on orthophoto mapping, yeah, it's more or less will not grow that much. But there are new markets that drones can enable, new workloads that the drone can enable, and on those workloads, the market is a greenfield.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Fair enough.
Someone who I trust very much. Actually, I asked him, like, hey man, how much? Somebody here was asking me about LiDAR inspection work, and you know, I know how to fly the drones too. I've never actually processed the LiDAR work, but this guy does. And how much money should I be charging for this? He's like, dude, we do $8,000 to $12,000 a day, and that's like 1,000 acres. Like, what the hell am I doing? Doing all the stuff that I'm trying to solve for the industry, doing this technical work when I could just be doing this drone service provision stuff. And after Louise is dead on it. You have LiDAR, you have oil and gas inspection, you have all of these other things that are I think are expanding, and I don't think we've reached peak commercial drone, and I think it'll be a while until we do. And because I look within that framework, drone delivery, right? Like, I know they're specialized aircraft and they use a winch and they have delivery mechanisms, but they have the same, hardware, batteries, requirements, remote ID, GCS, comm links as the rest of us. So I think that falls in the same category. A lot of things that the guys from Flying Lion, they do the DFR service for the community, like they're operators. And I think there's just a lot of opportunity for people to make money. And
come on, there are so many markets. The other day, I saw a company that specializes in drones do cast fishing lines. So instead of you showing the line, no, you have a drone that throws the line. Come on, who thought of that market? Hey, it's a super tiny niche market, but it's there.
What, like this?
Splash drone?
Well, that's one there. There you are.
Is that the splash drone as well? Whatever that is. They had there was a company called Splash Drone. That was Alex Rodriguez. It was his company.
No, that's not the splash drone. It's something else.
Oh, okay. All right. I've never seen that. Good for them. It's good for them. I know Carl's a lot to say about this. Carl was actually one of the first people to kind of open my eyes to you guys, you British folks call them chancers. There's a lot of chancers in the drone industry.
He's talking about me. He's talking about me. I've come back.
No. And I was going back to kind of like the publicly traded, like, there's a lot of companies who have raised money who don't make like real stuff. I know we joked about a drone that casts your fishing line, but like at least it does something, right? There's people who are totally trying to raise money on things that don't exist or won't exist, etc.
Those are used for that's organic drone. The popular ones are made in South Africa. There's one just gone to DroneX, in fact, a new one which does various things. But people make, well, this is your different market, I suppose. This is me now disproving what I was trying to say earlier. But people go commercial tuna fishing with those because they can see beyond the breakwater, and they drop it right on top of a bossing big tuna that they can pull in from the shore.
Yeah, see,
and that's what people, that's a business that's grown up around.
Real enterprise product, right? We've got folks, man, someone asked me today about different, it's very obvious, like what type of technology you'll see. And I usually joke, because I've worked for a company that was crowdfunded once, and I learned the hard way of why I think that's kind of bullshit. And you start to be like, man, these guys don't really make anything real. And people lose trust in the technology, right? People are very, very skeptical. And you're showing real stuff. Like you've got a whole room, all of you guys do, of stuff that's real product. But then you've got folks that I think have been misleading and been trying to make an opportunity. And it's up to us and I'll let Carl run with this because I'll leave because I consider Carl one of the more like vocal and also like objective people at calling people out to do this type of,
But that's this industry. That's not. It's 99% of this industry is bullshit.
Well, and so
that is the industry. It's a bullshit
true.
machine.
And I think because there's so much bullshit, we need to like I think recognize the accomplishments of companies, Skydio and many others who deserve it. I think that's like a big part of. Yeah. You have to give credit where credit is due. The only way for us to do this is like if we can't be unprofessional and like call out all the bad actors by name per se as much as we'd like to, but we probably should also elevate the ones that are doing the right stuff. And man, I don't agree with Patrick Egan on a lot of things, but I remember him making this good point of like, listen, these companies are at least doing something. They're doing something to catch up with the Chinese, and if we can't, if we've come a little way, fantastic. We've got more to go. So many people are still skeptical, especially here in the United States. You fly a drone somewhere, we still have the opportunity to fly drones in the US. And people will think that you're spying on them everywhere. People like that's the one
thing. Spying.
Yeah, and I think we need to do what we have to do to it's the enterprise applications that are going to change the public perception. With respect, it's not
life saving.
Well,
fire in them.
The problem is, right, people are full of their own self-importance that they believe what their mummies told them, that the world revolves around them. So that drone has to be filming them. It can't be doing anything else because their mummy and daddy told them that the world revolves around them. The human race is so far up its own backside and believes that anything that happens is about that one single person. The fact that they're irrelevant to everything is astounding.
True.
And I've said this. I've actually said this to a few people. I've had one or two run-ins, and I've told people they're up their own backside a few times because I don't put up with this thing where they're full of their own self-importance, and it's really frustrating. But that is the perception that a drone brings. But you take your camera out on a beach and you're filming your friends or your family or something, and someone stood in the background. No one cares. No one cares about being in the background of this shot, but it's a drone. But all of a sudden, oh, that's all about me now, and I'm, stop filming me.
I think it's hard for us to change the human nature or the human condition, and that's why, like for example, drone delivery. People think all the drone delivery people are spying on them, even though they aren't. They're just trying to get their package there. We'll let them go ahead and kind of steer the way. I did want to respond to this though. Like, I have been very critical of Skydio's lobbying efforts. I think that it's been premature, like to force people to, and it's a little bit punitive to people to give up the gear that they love, whether it's DJI, Autel, or whatever. Right? That's not fair. I'm just recognizing that the new product is pretty dope. And I think that if there is, their lobbying has made them, from what I've heard, very unpopular within the public safety space. And they got a hill to climb. And maybe that's the reason why the new product's so great. They're like, hey, we forced you to give up your old stuff without a right replacement. Here's this replacement now years afterwards. I don't know. But we just got to give credit for the innovation, right? It's.
Yeah, I think so, but I think we need to get Cake. Otherwise, he's going to sit here and say nothing. We've got to hear his voice from me. But I think they could have done better.
I should be talking for Cake. I should.
No. I agree with it all, and I sent Gary something earlier before about what's going on in the industry and claims people are making, and this is it just every single day I see it, and I suppose if I was to call out everything that is certainly down that road, I think I wouldn't have any time in the day left. There are one or two perpetrators who do it far too much. Now, something that's become very interesting, and I think you guys realize, one thing I've been really focusing on is, we've been seeing this anti-Chinese sentiment coming down the line. And I certainly think that one of the activities I noticed of one of these particular people who is always promoting themselves, they've become very, very active in it lately. And that's a knock-on effect from the starvation of the Chinese stuff that they usually sell. So I think we're going to start seeing a lot more innovation come out of certain places, whether it's good or bad. One of the things I'm starting to see, and certainly I'm taking a lot of calls at the moment, are from one or two of the massive players in India who are sort of like going down the lane of how can we integrate ourselves into the West a little more to do something. And one or two of these companies, they're not quite at the level of DJI. In fact, they're nowhere near. But do they have the capability of being there? Are they halfway there? I think one of them is. And I think that we are going to start seeing a lot of leaping from India. And I think there's going to be a lot of US money going that way very soon to sort this out. And I just ended a call, just about half an hour ago, talking about motor technologies. And I want to talk with Bobby tomorrow privately on this. One thing that we're starting to see now is a starvation on the motor tech in the US. And, there are one or two people out in the US who are producing motors at the moment. And we're going to start seeing changes in that because that's the next starvation point. I don't think we're going to start seeing any replacements of any of the small motors for light show drones, things like that. I don't think we're going to start to see issues. But I think what we are going to start seeing is on the bigger motors for the likes of VTOL and things like that. I think we're going to start seeing a lot of starvation there. So there's change coming because people don't. This isn't just about T Motors getting a slap or anything like that. It's actually to do with the what people call rare earth elements, basically the stuff that people can't be asked pulling out the ground because it's too difficult and too messy. And certainly over here in Europe and definitely in the United States, all of the mines that they used to utilize to pull these things out of the ground, they stopped using them. Some of the Chinese corporations reopened those mines, dug it out the ground in Nevada to send it over to China to process. So there's going to be a lot of changes soon in the motor industry, and I think that's going to hit us all out of the blue quite quick. And I don't know what you think about that, Mark. I mean, what are you seeing at the moment? I mean, are you still got good supply coming in from these places, or?
We have no problems getting motors for our light show drones. Yeah. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
We don't, and I don't foresee a problem. I don't see it going to impact us at all.
Yeah, but I think anything large, I think we're going to start to see issues soon. I really do.
Hey, what about the old technique of repairing motors? Hey, it's what we used to do.
Yeah.
No, I'm that old. I used to wind motors. So,
Here's a question, though. Motors, how they are reliable unless you get a bit of grit in one somehow. Motors don't tend to go. The bearings are the weak point because they're the moving point. They're the two moving parts. So if you've got two bearings in it, if they're good ceramic ones, that motor's going to last some time. As long as you can change them, generally motors don't tend to give up the ghost nowadays. They are well built.
Yeah.
Yes. Buying some American-made roller bearings. There was a company that did the best roller bearings that was US-based. That was a good solution to get the motor back to life.
And that's the critical bit, because you can tell when a motor's starting to go. You can tell when motors have problems, especially with bearings, because they start to get a bit of a wobble. Oh, they're even more fun. They're even more fun to try and fix. Thanks, Gary. So the bearings on them, because
forgot to show this while Bruce was today.
So if you've got a nitro engine, the worst thing is the nitro starts to eat everything. It starts to do it.
It's not a stinking nitro. It's a diesel.
Right. So diesel's not, surprisingly, diesel's not as bad on a bearing as nitro.
I was doing somewhere here. I have got a hand wound American motor that was for a project in 2011. I had motor special man. Oh, look, he's got the little cock. You've got your cocks there, haven't you?
Yeah, it's got a little. See, I don't have glow engines knocking around anymore. I just don't have glow engines.
I just happened to find this in a box. I think the shortage of stuff, because we've been going nearly an hour and a half, so we've got to go in a minute.
I don't think it's shortage at the minute.
I think it is going to start revealing itself in little patches here and there. And as Keg says, especially the larger motors. We haven't got any problems yet, but then I live in a BRICS country, so we might not get a problem. Innovation in the market, what people are doing with stuff, bullshit in the market. It's all not changed a lot, and I'm afraid I find myself being quite immune to it. But what I always worry about now is that there are really brilliant innovative companies out there, small startups that are really doing amazing things, and they're lost in the noise. And that's why I started SUS News. I've got to work harder to make sure that if you are a small innovative company, you are always welcome to post in SUS News. It's why I started it. You won't be charged. There is no fee.
You will get something.
One thing about the motors. Haven't we seen that the price of electric motors that we normally use couple of months ago has hit a rock bottom price? So isn't this supposedly lack of supply a bit?
Yeah, it's going to help, isn't it?
Pushing up the prices. I'm always weary of market conditions, and if you have a predominant manufacturer that goes with an attitude like this, not fulfilling orders, I don't know. Hey, conspiracy theory, get me the tinfoil hat.
Yeah.
I think it's horses for courses as well. Again, the motors I would tend to look at as opposed to some of the motors that other people would look at, like a just general commodity, hobbyist type, display drone type motors. They're great, they're reliable. We used to use them all the time. Now, what I'm starting to see, especially from the US side of things, are people really interrogating us on, where's that motor from? What about the controller or this? How's that linked? What's that doing? Where are the materials from that motor? And I'm noticing this in the UK as well now, certainly at military levels. People starting to really ask a lot of questions about this. And I think there's going to be a new high-end market in motors. I can see that coming down the line, and I can't see it impacting too much on the higher end systems. But the low end systems, as I say, certainly BRICS are not going to see a supply issue. That's for sure. I was speaking to one of the chaps over in South America about this, and he just took a massive consignment in, and so I do understand that. But as I say, the larger motors, I think that you're going to start to see state control from China on the larger ones, because they know they're being used by the military in the US. So watch this space.
Well, but they've become a viable product, though, don't they, for an American manufacturer or a European manufacturer to start making, when they can start making a bit of a profit on them. They start being something perhaps worth looking at. And if I were to build a low-cost drone for the situation that's going on out there now, I would be looking end to end, not necessarily caring about NDAA, but just looking at what all the parts are, and then keeping them sustainable, as it were. It's the peace dividend. Hopefully that event will be over soon. Let's hope it ends soon.
Yes,
for everybody's sake. And when that event's finished, can't really name it because YouTube buries your videos then. But when that finishes, I think the peace dividends can be very, very interesting. The amount of knowledge of use of all this technology that's been gained out of there is going to be quite extraordinary. And that's going to be the place you're going to want to go to and ask questions of how did you do this and how did you do that? That's for certain.
Well, one thing I'll say to you, Gary, is this. I won't go into too many details, but there's a lot of British ingenuity and innovation that feeds into that. A shed load of it. That's there. One of the concerns certainly is once that situation does what we all want it to do. There is a grave concern that you're going to have a bunch of people who have been through this for a few years. They've got tremendous skills in them areas, and they're all going to be looking for work. And there are, yeah, and there's going to be a lot of factions out there who want that type of thing in their neck of the woods, and we're going to end up in a mercenary situation, and that could also be a problem. So again, there's a lot of side conversations going on in a lot of dark offices about, you know, true counter drone capabilities, what's coming next, because, you know, there is a fear that once peace does occur, there's going to be a lot of people let loose in the world with a lot of that knowledge selling to the highest bidder. So yeah, it's an interesting time. That's for sure. And yeah, I think that we just got to be ready for it. So, you know, it could be one of the best things that's ever happened to uncrewed systems ever. And it's not just to drones. Obviously, we've got the seagoing variants as well. I mean, they're tremendous. Yeah, we're getting there. But I think obviously the next theatre where we're going to start seeing a lot of innovation is going to be Australia and the Taiwan Strait for defensive purposes. So I think it's a really interesting time, especially in the end that I'm in, as opposed to where Mark is. It's I mean, that's an interesting situation. I do actually need to come down and see you, Mark, about something that I'm working on at this moment with DARPA, which, yeah, anyway, we'll talk about it at a different time. But the reality of it is, what we're starting to see now is this fusion of things that are happening in the drone display space, where you integrate that with some really nice, sexy RF technology, and you've got some, yeah, you've got things that people could only dream about. And another conversation I was having the other day was processor technology. I was listening to a keynote where someone was blurting off about quantum computing, didn't know what they were talking about, put them a little bit straight, and I actually said to them, well, actually, if you look at the silicon capability at the moment now, the processing that you can get just for a simple desktop at this moment in time, if you relate that back to what I was buying at the high end in 2018 to today, I've got about 35 times more computing power for a third of the price. Phenomenal. So we are going to see a lot of fundamental changes, I believe, in this scene very soon. A completely different class of higher end aircraft, and yeah, as I said, we'll wait and see.
Yeah, well, it does actually. That's a really good place to end, because I started with a pole and a TV antenna and how things change and how technologies change.
I was listening to that terrestrial TV thing. It's quite funny. Back in my house looks like Jodrell Bank. I've got dishes on a log cabin at the back. I've got 2, 3 HF aerials. I've got a long wave going right the length of the garden. I've got 2 antennas on the side of the gable. And everyone's like, what the does he do? It's like, yeah, it's so interesting to mess around with the RF stuff. And that's actually one of the biggest things I'm working on now with UAS technology. And I'll have a chat offline about it.
Yeah. But it's just, you know, an 8-year-old child has no idea. Children have no idea what traditional TV was, and they're completely happy with the idea that they're getting digital satellite television. That happens every day. Come on, what else is there? What else can there be? They're completely happy that they're streaming services off the internet. I mean, come on, there can't have been anything else, surely. It just blows my mind. It's not that long ago when all of that was a thing. So as you say, technology is moving on quickly, and with that moving on quickly, we must move on quickly. We've been here for an hour and 43 now. Thanks very much, Keg, for joining us. Thanks very much indeed for all you dear viewers out there, and everyone else that's been in and out of the chat. Sean didn't dare to come in and argue with us. I mean, he's probably tired because he's down at DroneX. It would have been nice if he dared. And Bobby, it was great for him to come as well. Dear viewer, wherever you are in the world, look after yourselves, be safe this week, and we'll see you again next week, 2100 GMT. Cheers for now, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye. That's my second click. I didn't do that.